Just after dawn on a humid June morning, Maya Thompson maneuvered her aging SUV through the narrow streets of the Sanford neighborhood, a clipboard resting on her steering wheel and her phone tucked beneath her ear. Her voice was calm but insistent as she confirmed details with the city's special events office: barricade layout, trash pickup schedules, and emergency exits plan. Though barely 28 and juggling a full-time job at the community center, Maya had volunteered to organize this year's Sanford Night of Light block party, and she intended for it to be the most ambitious in the event's 10-year history. By mid-morning, she was already pounding the pavement, flyer in hand, knocking on the polished brick stoops of every home along Elm, Pine, and Maple Avenues. Each door she opened revealed a unique face of Sanford: Mrs. Alvarez, the retired schoolteacher in her sun hat; the Patel family's twins, eyes wide as Maya explained the plan for a kids' art station; Mr. Johnson, the barbershop owner, whose broad smile meant another catering sponsor secured. With each, "Yes, we'll be there," Maya felt her vision take firmer shape. Back at her tiny apartment, walls plastered with neighborhood maps and sponsor logos, she methodically charted the block party's components on an oversized whiteboard. Food and culture corridor, a row of food trucks offering soul food classics: Caribbean roti, Salvadoran pupusas, and gourmet vegan tacos. Main stage, portable risers and a sound system for local bands, Afrobeat ensembles, gospel choirs, and a hip-hop crew led by the high school youth group. Art and History Pavilion, folding tables displaying archival photographs and first-person stories of Sanford's founding families, alongside youth-designed murals illustrating the block's evolution. Kids Zone, face painting stations, storytelling tents, and sidewalk chalk murals where children could depict their hopes for the neighborhood's future. Safety and accessibility, bicycle patrol volunteers, wheelchair-accessible ramps, first aid stations staffed by the local volunteer EMT squad. By week's end, she had secured verbal commitments from 8 food vendors, 3 community organizations, and the high school band director. Even the neighborhood church had agreed to provide a handful of picnic tables and help staff the information booth. Each new agreement Maya logged on the board felt like another brick in a street she was building toward that one triumphant night. But behind Maya's back, trouble was stirring. On her final visit of the day, to Mrs. Kensington's Grand Victorian at the corner of Elm and Pine, Maya noticed a group of well-dressed homeowners lingering on the porch, whispering as she approached. Their smiles were polite but guarded, and when Maya explained she needed their permission to close off the street, their nods faltered. "Too much noise," one said, voice low. "Late lights, kids. It's not the Sanford we knew." Another muttered about traffic detours harming property values. Maya asked if they'd consider attending to see the joy it brings. They exchanged glances and shook their heads in unison. "We'll think about it," they told her. And the front door clicked shut. That evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Maya sat at her kitchen table, empty coffee mugs and half-eaten sandwiches scattered across her workspace, and reflected on the few doors that had closed in her face. She tapped her pen against the notepad where she'd drafted her neighborhood petition. Signatures from over 50 households already secured, pledging attendance and volunteer support. Yet she knew the silent pushback from this small faction could derail her permit application if the complaints reached City Hall. Steeling herself, Maya drew a deep breath and flipped open her laptop. She began drafting a new strategy, gathering testimonials from families who'd grown up on these streets, documenting the economic upswing that past block parties had driven to local businesses, and highlighting the event's safety record under her watch. If the permit office needed convincing, she would give them evidence they couldn't ignore. As midnight approached, Maya finally stood and stretched, eyes heavy, but spirit undiminished. The whiteboard glowed faintly in the lamplight, its empty squares awaiting the final details of barricade crews and cleanup teams. Sanford's block party might be threatened by shadowy opposition, but Maya Thompson was already envisioning the night when strings of paper lanterns would line Elm Avenue, laughter would echo off the old brick facades, and every neighbor, from Mrs. Alvarez to the Kensingtons, would taste the light that only true community could spark. 2 weeks later, Maya arrived at the City Hall permitting office brimming with anticipation, only to find her block party permit conspicuously absent from the docket. She approached the clerk's window, offering her neatly organized packet of neighborhood signatures, insurance certificates, and traffic control diagrams. "I'm sorry, Ms. Thompson," the clerk said without looking up. He slid her packet back through the slot. "Your permit was withdrawn. There's no record of approval, and until further notice, we're not scheduling closures on Elm Avenue." Maya's heart sank. Withdrawn? But I dropped this off 3 weeks ago. Signed by Public Works, Fire Marshal, and the police department, she insisted, tapping the stamped cover sheet. The clerk shrugged, scanning his screen again. "I see a new application. Priority flagged for noise complaints. Once those are resolved, you can reapply, but that won't be in time for June 30th. Determined to uncover the cause, Maya retraced her steps to the neighborhood. In conversations at the corner deli, she learned that anonymous letters had flooded the city's complaint hotline. "This event will be a noisy eyesore," read one. "We object to late-night music and street closure," read another, each signed with a phony address. At the Patel grocery, the manager whispered that a trio of well-dressed homeowners, residents of the historic Kensington Row mansions, had personally lobbied the mayor's office, citing preservation of neighborhood character and public safety concerns. That evening, Maya gathered her core volunteers, high school intern Tasha, church group coordinator Pastor Nguyen, and her friend Jason Ridden, a civil rights attorney, to debrief at her kitchen table. Pulling up the city's online complaint portal, Jason noted that all 6 recent complaints came from the same IP range and timestamps within minutes of each other. "Someone automated this," he said, pointing to the digital trail. "They want to drown out real voices with fake grievances." Tasha frowned. "So they're weaponizing bureaucracy? We can't compete with that by just asking nicely." Pastor Nguyen nodded gravely. "This is more than noise complaints. It's a coordinated effort to suppress community joy." Maya drew a deep breath and tapped her pen against her notepad. "We need a new plan." She sketched a flowchart on the table's surface. Document all unauthorized complaints and cross-reference them with real addresses. Challenge the city's public nuisance designation by submitting affidavits from neighbors who support the event. Identify local grant programs or alternate funding streams to strengthen our leverage with City Hall. That night, Maya sent emails to every registered resident of Sanford, an open letter explaining the sabotage, an appeal for first-hand testimonials, and a promise to fight for the block party's revival. Within hours, her inbox overflowed with supportive responses, oral histories of past parties, photos of children laughing on closed streets, and offers to testify in person. Even the Kensington Row homeowner's next-door neighbor, Mr. Harrison, wrote that he'd never opposed a block party and would gladly speak at a council hearing. As midnight struck, Maya leaned back, eyes bright despite exhaustion. The sabotage had cast a long shadow, but it had also revealed the true breadth of community sentiment. She opened a fresh page in her binder, Sanford Solidarity, Testimony, and Evidence, and began to paste printed emails, affidavits, and annotated complaint logs into neat columns. The shadows of sabotage would soon be dispelled by the light of collective truth, and Maya Thompson was ready to lead the way. By the time Maya sat down at her kitchen table that evening, the overhead light flickered on stacks of discarded permit forms and complaint log printouts, evidence of an insidious campaign to derail her block party. She rubbed her temples, scanning the municipal codebook for any loopholes. That's when Jason Ridden, her friend and civil rights attorney, leaned over her shoulder and pointed to a nearly buried clause. Section 12.4b, Community Enhancement Grants. These grants, Jason explained, award up to $150,000 for neighborhood-driven infrastructure projects, sidewalk repairs, lighting upgrades, streetscape beautification. The next application deadline is 2 weeks away. Maya's eyes widened. If she could win that grant, she'd not only rebuild the street's sidewalks and install sturdy lampposts, but also demonstrate that the block closure served a broader revitalization purpose, shifting City Hall's view from nuisance to neighborhood partner. The only catch: the application required a full engineering estimate, 3 letters of community support, a detailed timeline, and proof of a matching 10% in volunteer labor or local funds. Over the next 2 days, Maya transformed her modest apartment into a makeshift project office. She convened Pastor Nguyen and Tasha at a white folding table, printing sidewalk damage photos and mapping out the street's uneven paving stones. Maya called in favors from the community center's volunteer engineer, Mr. Delgado, who measured curb heights and drafted preliminary CAD diagrams for a granite paver walkway. "We'll need exact square footage," he told her, shading his glasses against her laptop's glare. Late into the night, Jason guided Maya through the grant narrative. She wove in the block party's history as a catalyst for small business growth, cited local crime reduction statistics, correlated to street closures, and included testimonials from the Patel Grocery, Mrs. Alvarez's tutoring circle, and even Mr. Harrison from Kensington Row, whose reluctant support underscored the project's wide appeal. On the fourth day, Maya sat on the steps of City Hall with a folder bursting with reference letters from the school principal, the volunteer EMT squad leader, and a neighborhood association resolution signed by 65 households, far surpassing the 3-letter minimum. With 5 hours to spare before the midnight deadline, Maya finalized the detailed budget: $45,000 for granite pavers, $30,000 for 6 solar-powered lampposts, $20,000 for youth mural panels, $25,000 reserved for a robust waste management plan, and $30,000 in contingency and volunteer labor valuation. She calculated her 10% match not in cash, but as 1,500 hours of documented volunteer labor, painting flower boxes, coordinating cleanup efforts, and hosting community planning meetings. As she hit Submit on the online portal, her heart pounded with a mixture of relief and anticipation. The grant application was in. Now she would have to convince the committee that Sanford's block party was more than a party, but the linchpin in a lasting street revival. On a drizzly Tuesday morning, Maya Thompson stood outside the Municipal Grants Chamber, an unassuming brick building whose faded facade belied the power held within. Clutching her bulging binder of plans and testimonials, she slipped past the double doors into a hushed auditorium. Behind the long, varnished dais sat 7 members of the Community Enhancement Grant Committee, city engineers, neighborhood association representatives, and 2 council liaisons. Their polished nameplates glinted in the fluorescent light. Maya's heart thundered as she took the podium. Before her, 3 competing applications awaited review: a suburban playground replacement, a downtown mural corridor, and her own proposal: Sanford Streetscape and Night of Light Revitalization. The air smelled faintly of coffee and damp umbrellas. Maya glanced at the first 2 presenters, one nervously rattling through slides of rusty swing sets, the other gesturing at half-finished sketches of alleyway murals, before the chair cleared his throat. "Ms. Thompson, you have 20 minutes to present, followed by questions. Please begin when ready." She drew a slow breath, clicked her remote, and the projector lit up with her title slide: a before and after rendering of Elm Avenue, cracked asphalt transformed into a gleaming granite promenade under new lampposts. "Good morning," she began, voice steady. "Sanford has suffered 20 years of deferred maintenance, cracked sidewalks, dim streetlights, and an erosion of community cohesion. Our annual block party, Sanford Night of Light, once drew thousands, but without infrastructure to support it. The event stalled, and our businesses suffered." She advanced to a slide showing petition signatures and crime stat graphs. "This grant will catalyze a permanent transformation. With $150,000, we will repave Elm Avenue with weather-resistant granite pavers, $45,000. Install 6 solar-powered pedestrian-scale lampposts, $30,000. Commission youth-designed mural panels, $20,000. Fund a professional waste management plan, $25,000. And allocate a contingency for volunteer labor costs, $30,000. Each figure appeared beside a color-coded pie chart, and Maya's 1,500 recorded volunteer hours glowed in a bold sidebar. As murmurs rippled among the committee, she pressed on. "Beyond aesthetics, this project addresses public safety concerns by calming traffic, improving nighttime visibility, and fostering eyes on the street. The murals, co-designed with Sanford High School art students, will counteract vandalism and give youth a positive stake in their neighborhood. Images of students painting, elders smiling beneath new lanterns, and local cafes restored to life filled the screen. The chair leaned forward. Ms. Thompson, your application is compelling, but several complaints have been lodged regarding noise and traffic. How do you propose to mitigate those concerns in future events? Maya managed a confident nod. Great question. We've budgeted for temporary directional sound barrier panels to funnel music away from residential facades, and a digital permit system that staggers vendor arrival times to avoid congestion. Our volunteer traffic ambassador team will coordinate with city police to ensure smooth ingress and egress, drawing on the same 1,500 volunteer hours pledged in kind. She produced a laminated flowchart of vendor arrival windows and crowd control zones. Another member, the senior city engineer, raised an eyebrow. Your cost estimates are precise, but how will you ensure timely completion, given past municipal delays? Maya tapped to her Gantt chart, the project timeline broken into weekly milestones. We've engaged local licensed contractors who specialize in expedited sidewalk repairs. Our permit modifications have already been pre-approved by Public Works under a fast-track review, thanks to our early coordination. If awarded, we'll convene a kickoff meeting within 1 week and meet every milestone on time, with bi-weekly progress reports to this committee. As her time expired, Maya offered one final slide, an artist's rendering of the block party night after completion. Lantern-lit tables, children dancing under bistro lights, and a crowd spilling happily across a revitalized Elm Avenue. Silence held as she stepped back and lowered the remote. Then the chair called for questions from the audience. A handful of supportive residents, summoned by her open letter campaign, stood to offer brief, heartfelt endorsements. When the final question ended, the committee adjourned to deliberate. Maya exited the chamber, rain droplets beating on her hair, and waited in the corridor with Jason, Pastor Nguyen, and Tasha. The minutes stretched like hours, until finally the chair returned, papers in hand. Ms. Thompson, he announced gravely, the committee was unanimous in its conclusion. Your proposal not only meets, but exceeds our criteria for community impact, feasibility, and fiscal stewardship. Congratulations, your grant is approved. Elation surged through Maya as her friends cheered. The sabotage that had threatened to silence her block party had been answered by evidence, advocacy, and unshakable community support. With $150,000 secured, the real work of rebuilding Sanford Avenue and rekindling its night of light was about to begin. Dawn broke clear and cool on Elm Avenue as Maya Thompson arrived, alongside a caravan of white panel trucks and cement mixers. Under the glow of rising sun, she watched crews in hard hats and high-vis vests cordon off the street and begin demolition of the cracked asphalt. Jackhammers drumming in perfect unison, sending sparks and pebbles into the early light. Volunteers in bright Sanford Night of Light t-shirts fanned out, handing out bottled water and orange safety cones to curious passersby. By mid-morning, the first trench had been dug for the new granite paver foundation. Maya knelt beside the site engineer, Mr. Delgado, as he checked the laser-leveled string lines. "Square to the curb, Maya," he said, tapping the string with a pencil. Together they confirmed the precise angle for drainage, ensuring that rainwater would flow gently into the repaired storm grates. Nearby, youth volunteers carefully stacked smooth, slate-gray pavers, each one numbered in sequence to match the CAD diagrams Maya had helped draft. As the pavers were set with cement slurry, Pastor Nguyen led a rotating team of senior residents in painting the new planter boxes, bright teal and yellow. "Color uplifts the spirit," she reminded them, guiding Mrs. Alvarez's steady hand as she traced a sunflower motif on one box. Around them, children painted swirling patterns for the future youth-designed murals, their laughter mingling with the hum of power washers, cleaning old lamppost bases. At noon, work paused for a brief dedication ceremony. Tasha read aloud an excerpt from the neighborhood petition, the words of real Sanford families pledging to cherish the street as a gathering place. Jason Ridden, offered the invocation. May this avenue stand as a testament to what happens when community, not conflict, shapes our shared spaces. Maya accepted a symbolic shovelful of earth from the corner lot and turned it over to the volunteer next to her, who would use it to plant the first burst of marigolds in the new sidewalk beds. In the afternoon, 2 of the 6 solar-powered lampposts were set into their concrete collars. As technicians connected the wiring and tested the night sensors, the poles stood like silent sentinels, sleek black posts topped with vintage-style lanterns that would glow with a soft, amber warmth. A hush fell as the first lamp flickered on under the technician's instruction. The kerosene-lit look brought a ripple of awe from the gathered crowd. Meanwhile, across the street, a small group of impeccably dressed homeowners, those same Kensington Row saboteurs, peered through their manicured hedges. Their faces were taut with resentment as they watched the street transform. The disused hydrant freshly painted scarlet, the new benches bolted to reinforced pads, and the broad granite sidewalk stretching toward the horizon. Unfazed, Maya led the planting day ceremony at 4 p.m. Neighbors armed with trowels and wheelbarrows laid out the final clusters of perennials, lavender, echinacea, and native grasses, into recessed sidewalk planters. She guided curious toddlers in placing the last bulbs beneath a newly sign-painted arch that read, "Welcome to Sanford Night of Light Boulevard." Photographers snapped candid shots, a trio of teenagers wiping sweat from their brows, a retiree beaming as she hammered the last stake, and Maya herself kneeling to pat down rich, dark soil around the flower roots. As the workday ended, Engine 27's old brass fire hydrant, once corroded and silent, stood gleaming in its restored paint scheme. A volunteer firefighter from the neighborhood turned on the hydrant briefly, sending a playful jet of water arcing across the street. Children squealed and danced aside. Adults clapped as the final piece of functional art sprung to life. Maya paused for a moment on the freshly laid pavers, looking down the length of Elm Avenue. The cracked, weathered surface of the past had given way to a vibrant promenade illuminated by new lights, lined with planters and benches, a place reborn. The saboteurs in Kensington Row retreated behind their gates, powerless to halt a transformation that belonged to every resident who had rolled up their sleeves. That evening, as the golden hour bathed the street in warm light, Maya walked its full length with Pastor Nguyen, Jason, and Tasha. They paused beneath the first lamppost, which hummed softly as its solar panel caught the last rays of sun. "This is just the beginning," Maya said, eyes shining. "On June 30th, Sanford Avenue will shine brighter than ever, and no one can smother that light." June 30th arrived in Sanford with clear skies and the scent of jasmine drifting on a gentle breeze. By late afternoon, Elm Avenue was transformed into a festival corridor. Strings of eco-lanterns zigzagged overhead, their paper blossoms swaying. Sleek granite pavers gleamed underfoot, and 6 solar-powered lampposts stood sentinel, their glass lanterns unlit but promising warmth. Folding chairs lined one side for live performances, while on the other, rows of food trucks billowed inviting aromas: spicy jerk chicken from Sweet Island Flavors, smoky brisket sliders at Low Country Q, and corn cheese arepas, courtesy of La Arepa Loca. 1. Opening ceremony and ribbon cutting. At precisely 6 p.m., the crowd of nearly 1,200 residents and visitors gathered for the ribbon cutting. Maya stood on the temporary stage, draped in fairy lights, flanked by Mayor Delgado, Pastor Nguyen, and Jason Ridden. With oversized scissors, gifted by the city, Maya sliced through the sky-blue ribbon. Applause erupted as lanterns above flickered on, powered by their solar cells, casting a soft amber glow. Maya raised a microphone. "Welcome to the reborn Elm Avenue, where community light outshines any shadow of sabotage." 2. Culinary and cultural corridor. Once the ribbon fell, families streamed toward the food trucks. At Sweet Island Flavors, lines formed around platters of festival-spiced plantains and curry goat. Nearby, La Arepa Loca's chef, donning a bright apron, demonstrated how to fold crispy arepas, handing samples to delighted toddlers. A banner overhead read, "Taste Sanford, a world of flavors." Volunteers with branded t-shirts circulated trays of lemonade infused with local mint and honey, pressing cups into grateful hands. 3. Main stage performances. On the raised risers, the Sanford High School Jazz Quartet kicked off with a brassy rendition of "Summertime," their solos echoing between the lanterns. As dusk deepened, the spotlight shifted to a gospel trio, a mother and her two daughters in matching white dresses, whose harmonies swelled through the speakers. Between sets, Tasha invited local poets to share 2-minute spoken word pieces about neighborhood pride. When the youth hip-hop crew took the stage, they rapped verses co-written with neighborhood seniors, an intergenerational celebration of unity. 4th, Art and History Pavilion. Under a canvas tent, the Art and History Pavilion displayed the youth-painted mural panels, vibrant scenes of Mrs. Alvarez's backyard teas, the Patel twins selling ice-cold sodas, and long-ago block parties with 1950s-era cars. Attendees moved from table to table, reading laminated first-person stories. How Elm Avenue once thrummed with music, then faded into neglect. A corner featured a touchscreen slideshow, looping drone footage of the street's transformation from cracked asphalt to granite promenade. 5. Kids Zone and Interactive Workshops. Adjacent to the pavilion, the Kids Zone buzzed with delight. Face painters transformed cheek-plump children into tigers and butterflies. In the story tent, a local librarian read translated folktales in English and Spanish, while younger listeners sat cross-legged on picnic blankets. Nearby, Maya herself guided children in a lantern of light craft, decorating small paper lanterns with tissue paper stars and personal messages of hope, later to be floated in jars along the street's new planters. 6. Safety and Accessibility in Action. Throughout the evening, volunteer traffic ambassadors, vested high school students, guided pedestrian flow at curb cuts, ensuring wheelchair access to every food truck and performance area. First aid tents, staffed by volunteer EMTs, handled minor scrapes and a heat rash case with grace. Behind the scenes, City Hall's noise mitigation panels discreetly funneled the jazz's lower frequencies toward the stage, minimizing sound spill into the Kensington Row mansions. Proof that respectful planning could harmonize celebration and serenity. Yeram. The grand finale, Lantern Release. At 9 p.m., Maya invited everyone to gather for the lantern release, a symbolic closing of the circle. Each attendee held a small lantern completed earlier. Maya counted down 3, 2, 1. As hundreds of tissue paper lanterns, each inscribed with personal hopes, drifted upward, carried by gentle thermal currents, the block party fell into awed silence. The lanterns bobbed against the night sky, twinkling like terrestrial stars above the freshly revitalized boulevard. The crowd cheered, voices blending into a single chorus of triumph. Neighbors embraced beneath the soft lamplight. The hip-hop crew and elders shared a spontaneous dance. Local news cameras captured the scene for the evening broadcast. As lanterns dwindled into the darkness, Maya stood at the street's center, heart full. The block party had not only survived sabotage, it had transcended every obstacle to become a luminous testament to community power, thoughtful design, and the unyielding spirit of Sanford. And as the final notes of music faded, the new luminaries of Elm Avenue, its granite stones and glowing lampposts, stood ready to light the way for every gathering yet to come.